Do you play War Thunder and are you struggling with the economy? You can now get free Golden Eagles by downloading the app down below and completing simple tasks. If you use my referral code EPGEK, you get 10 Golden Eagles upon signing in. And if all of you accumulate enough Golden Eagles throughout that link, I will be able to host 5,000 Golden Eagle giveaways with the Golden Eagles that you guys have earned. Welcome back, and let's take a look at the BR changes that just went live. For me it's about 25 minutes ago. For you it's probably gonna be closer to about 2 hours. I want to look at everything by nation, so you don't have to look through all the BRs. You can just look at the nations. I'll timestamp everything down below. And I'll give you my thoughts on it and how it might affect the matchmaker around the BR. This thing used to be 10.0, it still says 10.0 right here in the preview. But when I go into the actual plane it will say 10.3. This is great for all the planes at 9.0 basically. It's running into a tram with 3 to 4 AIM-9Ls. But you can't really do anything against it. Is very, very annoying. It wasn't nearly as painful as flying against something like the A10 late, because it also has a gun on it. But dealing with AIM-9Ls when you don't have flares was an absolute L moment. So seeing these planes go up is always great to see. And when I back out, you'll see that it actually says 10.3. And then we go to Germany. We have quite a few changes here. We start with the SPSK. And seeing this thing go lower in BR is, I think, okay. This plane is essentially a MiG-21S at a higher battle rating. And the issue is that you can either run flares or the gun. Without a gun, you're not very useful. Sure, you can get 1 or 2 kills and then go RTB. Maybe bait some people. But when you look at the absolute size of the matches nowadays, with 16v16, 2 or maybe 4 missiles when you run the R3Rs, which you can also do, is really just not worth it. At 9.7 this thing is a little bit more flyable. Do I recommend you to fly it with flares and no gun? Honestly, it depends on what you want to do. If you really want to just go in, shoot your missiles off, drop your dookie and be gone, maybe RTB, rearm, or even just rush in and suicide it, because it's only 7,000 SL to repair it, probably the best way to grind. However, someone like me, if you really like to just stay in the battle, I will probably run this absolute Frankenstein of a loadout where I have a gun, decent kind of flares, and I have a missile. 1 extra missile, will it limit my battle effectiveness? Yes, somewhat, but everyone has flares nowadays anyway, and I'd rather just have a gun so I can stay in the fight. How you are gonna fly this is up to you. At 9.7, this thing will be nowhere near as painful, because you will not be sucked up into 11.0 anymore, which is a pretty prominent BR right now. Then we have the Titanic of a plane, the Junker 88C6, and this is a bit of a heavy fighter-ish kind of plane. Doesn't have the best engines, doesn't have the best bomb loads, you only have 10, 50 kilogram bombs. Really not that impressive. Will this change anything? Not really. Maybe you'll die more in the full commit head-on when you go against 3 of the 20mm. They have the same shells as the MG151s at a very low BR, but that's essentially the only gimmick this thing has. And I don't think this will really impact the game too much. Probably went down for a reason. Then we have the Heinschel 129B2 for Romania, the premium one, as well as the one in the, normal tech tree. And the same thing goes for the Italian one. All of these 3 are identical. They all have the flight performance of something like the Titanic, and they can barely fly with both of their engines operable. Does that, however, mean that we need to drop the BR? Because the gun, the MK103, is absolutely disgusting, even at higher BRs. I'm putting it at 2.3 now. I think it's a little bit excessive, because the flight performance is still going to be bad. It's still not gonna do anything to other planes. So in that sense, it doesn't really matter if you put it at 2.3 or at 6.0. And I get it, you want to make the gun more powerful because the plane is absolutely dog shit. I don't necessarily agree with it. Maybe I'm wrong because I'm not really a ground beat player, but that's my perspective on it. End of the story. Lower BR 2.3, very strong gun, still piss poor performance, so nothing really changes. And then let's take a look at Russia. We have the PE2 205 as well as the PE2 110. Both of these planes went from 4.0 to 3.7. Not much to talk about here. They are fighter bombers with a very, average bomb load, I guess. They're pretty good for like spawning in, diving onto a tank and suicide bombing them basically. They are okay in that sense, not the best flight performance. 3.7 I think is fair. I've flown the 205 a fair amount. Pretty painful, but gets the job done, I guess. Then we have the MiG-334, and this thing deserves to go up from 2.3 to 2.7 airspawn plane at low BRs with very good guns. The Cheveks are disgusting. This is one of those low-tier bully planes. Doesn't turn the best, climbs pretty well, good climb rate. I think this is completely fair. One of those planes that has no business shitting on 1.3 planes in the slightest. Then we have the Year 2, basically the PE2, but even worse, and it also goes from 3.7 to 3.3. Pretty good change, doesn't really change much, the very mid planes, not much to talk about. And then lastly for Russia, we have the last questionable change of today. We have the Su-25 BM going down to 11.0, and yes, this plane is pretty mid, it's not very good, but R-73s on the plane, even though it doesn't have an HMD or an absolute dogshit airframe, I don't think this needs to be able to see 10.0 planes. Most of them do have flares, but R-73s from behind aren't really flareable, and if you have a plane that's inherently much quicker than the plane you are facing, you're bound to overshoot, and if this thing gets its nose on target, it is probably going to slam you out of the air, maybe even into the shadow realm. Don't really agree with it. Will it impact the game a lot because this thing flies around a lot? Probably not, but I think we could have gone without this one. But you know, can't win them all, I guess. Then we have the Wyvern that goes from 4.0 to 4.3, still too low, but very great to see that it's going up in BR. For reference, this thing goes 650 kilometers an hour on the deck. It gets an airspan, and that's faster than a lot of planes go at 6.0. If that doesn't tell you much, I don't know what will. It's of course a ground pounder. It's not meant to be a fighter, but this thing is at such of a low BR that in RRB it's better as a fighter than it is a ground pounder, which should tell you enough. Then we have the Hurricane Mark IV with the 40mm Vickers. Pretty funny plane. Pretty poor flight performance, and this thing doesn't have the firepower to just hose people down. It has the funny meme guns. 2.0 I think is completely fair. Then we have the J2M2, which, yeah, that went from 4.3 to 4.7. Absolutely deserved, could probably be 5.0, but it will also get a new flight model soon. It's in the works on the dev server right now. Not entirely sure what it will be exactly, but this thing going up is 100% deserved because this thing is absolute bullshit and it has been for a while. Then we have the Key 49. I mean, do I really have to talk about this thing? I haven't even flown it for good measure. I mean, yeah, it went from 3.3 to 3.0. Completely justified, I think. I've never seen this thing do anything. It doesn't have good gunner coverage. It doesn't have a good bomb load. It's not very fast. It's just mid all around. Then we have the J6K. 6.0 to 6.3 is mostly because of the guns. Absolutely stupendous amounts of ammo. 1200 rounds, 6 20mm that hit extremely hard. I made a video on this thing pretty recently, and it's perfect for just diving in on people, dogfighting 2-3 people at once, slamming everyone the first second you get guns on, and then leaving without elaborating. Does it deserve to go up in BR, however? I think it's okay, but it also really has no chance against jets. It's in a weak spot. It gets carried by the guns, but the flight performance is nothing to scoff at. We can see how it performs there. Not really against it, not really with it. I think it's okay because 5.0 planes had a pretty tough time versus it. But we'll have to see how this thing packs out. Then in China, nothing really gets changed. Italy, of course, gets the Heinschel 129 B2 lowered. Same deal as with the German one. Not gonna rant about it again. France gets nothing. Sweden, however, gets a few nice changes. We have the A32A and the A32A Road Adam. And great stuff. 9.3 was too high for these planes. 9.0 might still mean that they're not that fantastic. I just find it funny that it took them all the way until now, when we finally have a premium version, to lower the one that has been suffering for over 2 years. But it's always great to see that they go down in BR. Made a video on this thing to show you just how miserable it is, but here it is now at 9.0, and no, I'm not redoing that video. Then we have the JA37D with this absolutely appalling skin that I'm gonna take over right this instant. But this thing at 11.7 was too high, now we have it at 11.3. It's not gonna be a fantastic plane that's gonna clap the entire lobby, but this thing I think is deserved to go a little bit lower, especially with the roster that we have going on right now. And then we also have the AGS 37. which is another plane that I wanted to talk about. It's a good thing that this thing went down as well. Not fantastic either. It's a bit of a ground pounder that I run with this absolute Frankenstein of a loadout. But hey, it works. 11.0, it might actually be pretty decent now with the amount of down tiers and medium tiers that you are getting. But you know, it's still going to be an AJS. You're probably better off flying the the JA37D now, because well, it's the same BR as this thing used to be, but it has a much better kit. Then we go to Israel. We have the nets going up in the BR, which I think is okay. Still has the best flight performance out of all the F-16s, together with something like the F-16AJ and the F-16A in the American tech tree. However, this thing gets 3 of the Python trees, so I think that this thing going up in the BR is actually pretty solid. Let me know what you think about the changes. I am pretty happy throughout with all of them, other than the 129 being a bit sketchy, but I don't think it's gonna be too much of an issue. And the J2M going up is always a fantastic idea. However, if they now end up completely nerfing it when they change the flight model, it might have been a little bit of a bummer. But we'll see when that patch comes around. Let me know what you agree with, what you don't agree with, and you'll see me in the next one.